so happy you're here. This is the No Reward for Being Good podcast, and I'm your host, Jade Beal, one of perhaps the most sensitive humans on earth. I don't know. Who's counting? I wish to make this podcast because I've been wanting to do so for a while. I am a deeply feeling person, and I've been told my whole life that, you're just too sensitive. And, well, people aren't wrong when they tell me that. I am too sensitive. But the thing is, it's meant as a negative. But I see it as a positive. I am too sensitive. I feel things deeply. I cry easily. Being human is very hard for me. And yet, I persevere. I've taken so much pain, and I've turned it into such beauty. And I do this every single day. I've named this podcast No Reward for Being Good because I truly feel like my whole life I'm like, but I'm such a good person. Why do these things keep happening? Just like I used to think that changing my body, being finally thin enough would make me happy, I also have thought that being good, if I'm just good, then life will finally be okay. I'll be rewarded because I'm a good person. And what I have found is, regardless of how good or how thin or how well behaved I am, for me, life is still going to be a shit show. So, does not mean, though, that I'm going to stop being good. And get me real clear on this. I am bad a lot too. I am also all the things. I have some ugly behaviors I am intent on expanding and healing. However, regardless of getting no rewards for being as good as I possibly can be, I am still committed to being good. So I don't need any rewards to be good. The reward is to be good. To learn how to stop hurting people with our anger and our frustrations. Of course we want to blame everyone, but at the end of the day, there are very few people who actually deserve the blame. And so how can we use tools and ceremonies and practices so that we stop hurting each other? We do our own rage, anger work. We hold ourselves accountable instead of demanding other people to be held accountable. And we heal. At least, that's how I see it. I don't need a reward for being good, but that's not going to stop me from practicing every day to be in the vibration of love. I've learned how to carry this heavy and turn it into truly something I'm proud of. So what can you expect from this podcast? I'm going to be sharing my stories, childhood, perseverance. I'm going to be sharing other things that I've noticed, mostly about my life. And the reason I desire to share about my life is because I feel like when we share our stories, and especially those things that feel a bit shameful, something blossoms. When we share our shame in safe places, shame dies. I believe Brene Brown said that. Could be wrong. But I truly do believe that. So this is a place where I want to share my story, and maybe you can relate to it, and maybe a little shame will dissolve and burn back into light and give you some more spaciousness in that precious body of yours. If you don't know who I am, I'm a photographer, and I'm also a massage. I like to call healer, not because I can heal other people, because I'm very committed to my own healing. And so in my massage ceremonies, I like to call them, I offer a very safe place to heal. So I don't like to call myself a massage therapist. I like to call myself a massage healer, but I think we have a misunderstanding of what healer means. I'm not here to heal anybody, but I am here in very deep commitment to my own healing. I don't think there's an end goal. I think every day is another opportunity to heal. Sometimes I do need to pause and take breaks and binge the latest Love is Blind series. But then I put that aside and I get up again and I commit to this healing as a very sensitive person on this earth in 2025. So what you can expect from this podcast is deep stories, ways I've overcome some pretty traumatic things. I will always put disclaimers in case it's too much for you. I don't want to trigger something dark in you if you're not ready for that. But I'm going to be very candid and honest about some hard things because I feel very proud of how I've transcended these hard things. I feel very proud of all the beautiful things I've experienced in my life and how I feel like I've continued to alchemize it all together. One of my most passionate current practices is holding the multitudes, holding contrasting feelings. Feeling sad, but also grateful. Feeling shame, but also holding myself accountable. Holding rage, but not wanting to hurt anyone. Holding multitudes, I think, is a losing art. And so I hope to share here how we can continue to practice holding those multitudes in such a black and white landscape. I don't have any answers. I don't know anything. All I know is the healing that I am committed to. I love photographing bodies. I've been a photographer since 1996, and I love photographing all kinds of bodies. I have since I was 16 years old. Love photographing bodies because I love the human body. I see the human body as this masterpiece from Mother Nature, and every time I get to photograph a body, especially when it's nude, I feel like Mother Nature says to me, see this perfect masterpiece that is made from water and stardust and grief and ancient intelligence. Isn't this body beautiful? And so I've been photographing bodies my whole life. I've been massaging bodies for the last, 24 years. I love bodies, and I've had a very complicated relationship with my own body for many reasons, which is part of the stories I desire to share. For most of my life, I hated how my body looked. And I thought if I just get thin enough, if I just get pretty enough and have the right clothes, if I could just not be too sensitive, I could just have this different person. Basically, if I could just be someone else, I'll finally be happy. And well, I did chase that for a very long time, always trying to be someone other than I am. And it wasn't until a very short while ago, about 5 years ago, that I realized, okay, this body is a good body. No matter how much I try to change her, it's actually nothing to do with how she looks. This whole time I've been chasing the perfect body when really I needed to be chasing how to love myself deeper and accept all the things even that I don't like. So my current practice right now is I still struggle looking in the mirror and at photos of myself, but that not for a second will deter, will not move me away from my deep commitment to loving this body. I call my body Mother Nature's daughter. Who am I to judge her? I give thanks to the wisdom of all my ancestors as well as all the trauma I've inherited from my ancestors. I don't have to like how this body looks in order to love the wisdom of this body that I just happened to plop into on this earth life. So that's what we can expect. Today I want to share a story from my beginnings with baby girl Jade. That's going to be today's focus. But sometimes I'll stop telling my story and we'll go into broader things. Maybe even down the line I'll have some guests to talk about these things. Mostly I want you to know that no matter how you feel, whether you like how your body looks or not, whether you like how your personality is not, whether you like your life or not, you are a precious, beautiful, treasure to be protected. And I'm so happy you're here. And I think my opinion is, I'm not saying I'm right, I think social media has made things so much more black and white, has really robbed us of the important part of the nuance of being human. My whole life, I've been a part of circles that do not agree on everything. And yet, we bond in our humanness, in our love. Slowly, we learn from one another. We don't demand it. We slowly learn from one another, if that's meant to be. As I'm going to share, I grew up in a very unique situation, and I love the vast majority of my childhood story. I really, truly do love, and even the parts that are going to be dark, and I will share fully, uncensored. Even those parts I hold dear and tender, and I'm so proud of myself. But I did have the incredible, unique privilege of growing up in an actual village in Mexico. It's a village by the sea. It's called Yelapa. Maybe you've been there. It's a boat ride away from the very popular tourist town of Puerto Vallarta. My mom moved there in 1980. And so I got to be a part of a village, and we have to hold a lot of nuance. A lot of nuance is required to live in a village. And I'm going to get there. But before I get there, I just do want to highlight this opportunity I feel all of us have, including myself. I have a lot of work to do on this. And by work, I mean opportunity. I don't mean I have to put myself through more work. I'm so done working. But I don't have another word for it, really. An opportunity for expansion around holding multitudes. I'm going to give you a quick example of what happened yesterday. Yesterday was Friday. Oh, wait. Okay, 2 days ago. 2 days ago was Thursday, and I flew from Tucson, Arizona, where I live, to Victoria, British Columbia in Canada. I was going to photograph a very exciting privilege of a photo shoot. I was going to photograph on First Nation land, this beautiful family in a wedding ceremony, and they invited me, and I was gifting the photo shoot because I just saw it as an incredible opportunity to photograph beautiful people, and they wanted me. I mean, it just filled my cup. So I was so excited. I'm going to this wedding, and I had my usual bag that I packed that I've traveled all over the world with for photography. It has my light stand and my tripod and my softbox. And I carry with me 2 huge cameras, one of which is about 20 years old, all these lenses, batteries. It's so heavy. And as I get older, it feels like it gets heavier. Anyways, I carry that, and it's so heavy to lug on changing airplanes and whatnot. Anyways, I arrived to British Columbia, to Victoria, and the border agent starts questioning me. Why are you here? To photograph a wedding, I say, all excited. A wedding? Whose wedding? Oh, a friend of mine. Who's your friend? And the questions go on. And before I know it, the border agent is telling me that I cannot take away a job from a Canadian. And that, even though I said this wedding, this photo shoot is a gift, I'm gifting this. No, you are absolutely taking a job away from a Canadian, and we cannot let you enter. And for the first time in my life, I got to experience being sent away at the border. I didn't even get to set foot in Victoria. I was sent right back to Tucson via Chicago. It was a very long flight home. I didn't sleep for 48 hours straight. I got home and then I slept for about 16 hours. But what I wanted to share was the holding of the multitudes. Okay, so the border agent does the thing. They interrogated me for about an hour. I cried through the whole thing because I get really scared, and being interrogated makes me feel so scared. Even just thinking about makes me want to cry. I just get so scared. And they say all the wrong things. And I'm sweating, and I work so hard to not feel like a guilty person. I feel like everything's my fault as part of being human for me personally. Because I've always felt like everything is my fault. And I've learned how to work with it. Excuse me. However, there I am. I feel like this is my fault. And I'm feeling like shit. I've let my friends down. Now they don't have a photographer 2 days before the wedding. And I probably said the wrong thing to this agent, which made me look even more suspicious. And anyways, I turned around and sent back into the airport to go to Chicago, to go to Tucson from Victoria, British Columbia. And I'm so sad, but as I'm walking, I start to get angry. In my head, I'm thinking, that border agent, he can go F himself. And I start just seething, blame. And I'm like, okay, what I know is, from doing all my work, as soon as I start blaming someone, that means I have some anger to tend to, because I do believe that anger is very precious. My anger wants to protect me. My anger senses, something's very wrong. She's been crying for about an hour and a half. What's going on? And so anger comes up. That's why. It's that border agent. That's why she's sad. Let's protect her from that. So as soon as I realize I'm starting to blame, I go into the bathroom. I have 2 hours to kill anyway. So I go into the bathroom and I close the stall and I take out my phone and I start journaling. And I do a kind of journaling called journal speak, which I learned from my teacher, Nicole Sachs, who has an amazing podcast called The Cure for Chronic Pain. It's everything. I know I have to get this anger out of my head. The reason I know it's anger is because I started to blame the agent. I already know. I've already done so much work. I know how this works in my body. So I just go to town on my phone and I just talk shit about this agent. Every bad word I could come up with and how unfair it is. And I allow myself to be the biggest victim in the world. And I just let it all out. Type. And then I take some breaths. About 10 really slow exhale because I got to regulate afterwards. And then I delete what I wrote. I delete it. Just like vomiting or blowing my nose. It's just a purge. A purge. Why? Because there is anger. I am very angry at this situation. However, I know from my love place, from my spaciousness place, that I cannot blame the agent. I know the agent, just like me, we're all just these little microscopic pawns in this huge chess game by some really bizarre, powerful people on this planet right now. I can't blame the precious poor agent who probably barely makes more money than I do. No. I'm not going to misplace my rage onto this poor agent. Nor am I going to allow myself to seethe about it. So I get it out with my journaling. I have that spaciousness. And I let myself cry more. Because that's really all I can do. I'm so sad. I've been looking forward to this photo shoot for 6 months. I had all these visions in my head, and I'm so sad that I let this family down, and now this family doesn't have a photographer. And oh my gosh. And then I start to blame me, so then I got to do more journaling so I don't blame myself. I want to be really intentional with how I guide my anger and blame. I don't want to hurt anyone with my anger and blame. Nor do I want to gaslight myself and, I shouldn't feel that way. No, I absolutely should. But how can I let it pass through my body with minimal impact? Primarily without hurting anyone. So that's how I do it. And I highly recommend it. I also do it for a multitude of things. It's how I manage my chronic pain, my anxiety, just my overall perfectionist, deeply feeling personality that I have on this human journey. So the reason I shared that was an example of holding the multitudes today. I'm back home and I feel very sad, very, very sad. And I want to walk this morning in the beautiful desert with my dog and I'm crying. I don't even care if people see me. I'm just crying because I'm still sad. Because it's also sadness beyond that. It's just a sadness for the state of the world. It's just sadness coming through. I allow the sadness. But then I'm walking, I'm breathing, I'm being very intentional with my breath, very present with my sadness. And I look around at the beauty of Mother Nature. The saguaro cactuses all around me, the mountains, the crunch of my feet on the earth, the joy in my dog's eyes and his wagging tail. Oh, there's so much beauty. It's quiet. I have so much to be grateful for. And in that moment, I'm holding such gratitude for the beauty of life, and so much sadness in the very same moment. And I start to feel high with that feeling. It's just like, I feel like, oh, that's it. And I can't live there for very long, but I get little glimmers of what that feels like. That's it. The holding many opposing emotions. Holding it all. Doing my very best to not blame anyone. Getting really curious about the medicine of it all. And when I say medicine, I always feel like, I don't like to say everything happens for a reason. I feel like that just has been co-opted by yuckiness. But I do believe there's opportunities in all the things. And so that's what I mean. A continued practice, of holding the multitudes. Like I said just a few minutes ago, I had this really unique opportunity to grow up in a little village that you had to arrive to by boat. You had to take a boat, a little banga, they call them, their outboard motor little boat, from Puerto Vallarta, which is a very famous tourist destination. It's where John Huston photographed The Night of the Iguana with Elizabeth Taylor. Highly recommend watching that movie if you haven't. Oh, it's so good. He kind of put Puerto Vallarta on the map. Boom, bang, bang. Very popular place. Yelapa is a little boat ride away down the coast where no cars go to. It's not an island, but no roads have been built there from Puerto Vallarta. And so you take a boat and you get off on the sandy beach in Yelapa. This beautiful little bay. And birds are flying in the estuary. And there's restaurants right on the beach. And pie ladies walking up and down the beach selling pie that they carry on their head that they made just fresh that morning, whose recipe they will never tell you where they got it from. The pie ladies are very famous Yelapa character. And so this was the village that my mother, after divorcing my dad when I was still just a baby, and she got together with my amazing stepdad, Ron Doring, who was a musician, and my mother is also a musician, and they found Yelapa and they just loved it, and they said, oh, let's live here. It's so cheap to live, and we'll create music, and let's start a life here. And so they did. It was very cheap back then to live in Yelapa. We lived in a little hut, cost virtually nothing. Like basically, I don't know, $50 a month or something ridiculous was our overhead. I mean, we could live. We were poor in the U.S. And I think their reasoning was, or at least my interpretation is, let's go be poor and feel gorgeous. In America, when you're poor, it is horrible life. A horrible life. But in Yelapa, you can be poor and live a glamorous, beautiful life. That's my interpretation. Because we got this little palapa. It's a thatched palm roof hut with no walls. And the birds are there, and iguanas, and there's boa constrictors in the rafters, and there's a little waterfall in the backyard, and you walk there by a trail with bare feet, and all the locals say hi, and yeah, it's amazing. You eat fresh fruit right off the trees. My stepdad was a fisherman, so he'd go catch fish, and we'd have fresh food. Our overhead for living was nothing. We had no electricity. We had no bills. Our rent was dirt cheap. We had no running water, no electricity. We used candles for electricity, and I carried water once I got old enough in buckets from the river. So, very simple life, low cost of living for a lot of glamour and reward. So much reward because there's just so much beauty. And there was a little collection of expat gringos, Americans that already were living in Yelapa. Very interesting characters. Very few children, but there's definitely a few of us. And yeah, so there we are. We moved to this village. But before we moved to that village, I have very vivid memories of life with my dad in Tucson. My dad lived in Oh, my poor daddy. He had no family in Tucson. He'd made his way here mostly because he got my mom pregnant. And they just randomly met. Neither of them meant to live in Tucson. They were kind of passing through and met each other, and then there they are. But my dad decided to stay in Tucson, but he had no family and no money to speak of. And he lived in these apartments on 22nd and Alvernon, which is a rough place in Tucson. And these apartments were full of very, very sad people. That's what my daddy could afford, He couldn't afford much else. Poor guy. My dad is now dead, so I just have there's so much I would wish I could tell him. I'm like, I feel it. He had to rent that terrible place because he had no money and he didn't feel like he had options. Oh, I understand now that he's gone. Oh, there's so much I want to talk to him about. Anyway, getting back to those apartments, they were full of really scary people. Crackheads, this lady who stole my cat and everyone's cat and had them all in her apartment. I mean, it was mental health, sadness, darkness, a lot of really scary drugs, people always yelling and screaming. I was so scared to be there. So scared. And my dad had no car. He was so poor, and we're always like running to catch the bus. And my dad was always so stressed out and yelling, and I understand now why, but then I didn't. Oh, my poor dad. So when my mom went to Yelapa, and I got to go experience Yelapa from freaking 22nd Street in Alvernon in Tucson, I mean, whoa. And immediately, and I didn't know this, I only recently know how on the spectrum I am and my autistic ways. I didn't know, but I'm very easily overstimulated. So being in Yelapa with no cars, no electricity, so quiet. It's so quiet, especially then, not so much now. But then in the 1980, so quiet. And my whole person just blossomed, like relaxed and blossomed, and everyone on the path would touch my hair and smile at me, and oh, how beautiful. And I spoke no Spanish for a while because I didn't start school until the 3rd grade in Yelapa. I went to school in Yelapa. I started in 3rd grade, which was, I think, was that 1986, 1987, 1988. I have to do the math. I don't know the math exactly, but late 80s. Late 80s, I start school there, but before that, I didn't know Spanish, and I was very shy, and so I hadn't really made really close friends, although I played with the girls that lived around my little neighborhood. Not really a neighborhood, but who lived in the houses near our palapa, our little thatch roof hut. And the rains would come in the summer, and the sound of the rain on the palapa, and our beds were all hanging. They're hanging beds because there's a lot of scorpions and snakes and such, and so we had hanging beds to protect us a little bit better with mosquito nets covering them. And I just loved that. I loved my hanging bed, and Yelapa was a godsend for such a deeply feeling little girl like me. And so I started going back and forth via airplane to see my dad in Tucson. He'd gather the money or sometimes I think my mom would actually pay, and she had no money either, so I could fly by myself. Little girl me gets on planes to go from Puerto Vallarta, the airport, to Tucson. My daddy would pick me up, and I'd see him in the summer times and at Christmas. And I tell you, every time I got on the plane to go back to Puerto Vallarta and then the boat to get to Yelapa, I'd kiss the ground. I'd kiss the ground. And my mom and my stepdad, they loved playing music. And so they had a job in Puerto Vallarta that they went to, but we had all these parties. There was always some potluck happening with the gringos that lived there, and there'd be a party at Bill Murphy's, or there'd be a party across the river at Lang and Nancy's house, who had the fanciest house in Yalapa as far as I was concerned. They had a TV that was run by a generator. Oh my gosh, I just thought that was the bee's knees. A TV. Yeah. And we'd have potlucks, and my mom and my stepdad would play music, and I'd run around feeling like the queen bee. Like, oh my goodness, such a different vibration than living in apartments full of sad people on 22nd and Alvernon. So this life, this beautiful, beautiful life for this very deeply sensitive child was pretty remarkable. Pretty remarkable that my mom happened to go there. And now I have a sister, half sister. We have different dads. Her poor daddy was in Vietnam and suffered some pretty bad mental health within Vietnam. And so my sister never even really had a dad. But she's 10 years older than me, and she didn't really care for Yalapa much. So rightly so, teenager in the 80s, in this village with no electricity. There's no curling irons, nothing to be a proper teenager of the 80s in Yalapa. So that was a big difference right away, was that I loved it. She didn't. And she ended up living a lot of that time in Tucson with my dad and other people. And her poor story is pretty intense. But there was a lot of guilt on my part always with my sister. I always felt very guilty that I loved the things she didn't. I felt guilty that I had a dad and she didn't. I felt guilty for a lot of things. And so our relationship was never very close, although she was a very good sister. She's still alive. We just have a very strained relationship for many reasons. I don't know if I'll share those here. Probably one day I will. And none of them are her fault. I'll take full responsibility for all of it. Full responsibility. I don't gotta blame nobody. Nobody. But I digress. In Yalapa, it was perfect for this deeply feeling person. In third grade, I should get this math right. I don't think about years. How old are you in third grade? Oh, goodness, I have a son. He's 13. I should know these things. So I start for third grade, and the first day of school, I have a backpack, and we have a uniform. I got the uniform. My mom must have found out the basics because I had the uniform. I had, what I needed, I guess, but she walked me. That's right. The first day she actually walked me to school. But my mama, she didn't speak no Spanish back then. She had no Spanish skills back then, and neither did I. And one of my little play friends that I'd met, but I didn't really know because I couldn't speak to them, her name is Yenny, and later down the story, she becomes my very bestie. Yenny, she walks with us. We can't speak. There's no speaking, but I think she could tell what was up. She's so smart, little third grader. She's still very smart. And we get to school, and my mom's like, okay, bye. And he walks away. And there I am, this little third grader with blonde hair and can't speak the language. But there I go into this classroom with no other Americans. There were 2 other Americans, but they were in 6th grade at the time, which was in a different location. So I didn't even get to see them. Plus I was 3 years younger, and I was not, they were very cool. I was very not cool. So there I am in 3rd grade with not a lick of Spanish. And the first thing I did notice was that everyone had their books and notebooks in plastic bags. And my book bag was a backpack. And I felt so out of place. So out of place. And I vowed to myself, I said, oh my goodness, as soon as I go home, I'm ditching this backpack and I'm going to tell my mom I want a plastic bag. I did not like standing out, as if the backpack was really going to help me from standing out. Like 2 feet taller than a lot of Yalapans are very indigenous and just, the most gorgeous people you've ever seen. And I have blonde hair. At the time I was very tall for my age. And so, yeah, I stuck out, but, I was trying my very best to fit in. And so I thought the first step to fitting in is making sure I get the plastic bag, like plastic grocery bag, with two little handles, and putting my books in those. That'll help. Okay. So I'm slowly but surely figuring out this way. And the cool thing about kids, this is so cool about children. I started not knowing a lick of Spanish. I'd figure out my homework and I'd write down things, and my mom and I'd go home and we'd translate everything with this English-Spanish dictionary. Bless her heart, she helped me a lot. Oh my goodness, I'm just remembering how much she'd helped me figure that out, because we didn't know the words. And so we'd spend hours translating what everything meant word by word. And then my responses, word by word. But this is what's so cool about children. Children are so smart. I think it was less than a month that I started to speak pretty easily Spanish. And I was like, Mom, I don't need your help. I totally fired her. I became pretty fluent pretty quickly. I mean, I'm not going to call it perfect, but with enough ease to speak with Yanni, enough ease to figure out how to do my work, and with enough ease to start doing really well in school. So that is one thing. I put my hand on my heart and I think of little girl Jade, and just like, well done, cutie. You're so brave. So brave to walk into a situation where you couldn't even speak. And a lot of that time, I will tell you, I had to look up to the ceiling and hold my tears in because I wanted to cry. A lot of those, during that first week, there was a lot of fear. I'd look up and I was so scared to cry in front of other kids. Like, there's nothing worse you can do than cry in front of other kids. And so I'd look up to the ceiling and I'd bat my eyes and I just don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. And now thinking back, we're so brave as little humans. So brave. But regardless, within a month, everything started to flow. And by 4th grade, I was top of my class. And by 5th grade, I became really close with some of the teachers. And 6th grade was like my crown jewel moment in Yalapa. I got to be in the squad, in the banderada, the people who hold the Mexican flag every Monday. You salute the flag. I didn't get to hold the flag, but I got to be in the squad that marches in front of the whole school carrying the flag. They're the smartest kids. At least they were when I was in school. And it was a huge honor, the biggest honor. There was only 6 of us, and we were the smartest girls. We were so cute. Oh my gosh. And all that to say that I blossomed, not to say there wasn't a lot that I also persevered against. In 4th grade, I had a teacher who very, very clearly vocalized his hatred for gringos and white people. And back then in school, it was legal. I think this is done now. I've heard that this is done. But back then, teachers could hit the students with sticks, very thin sticks with them, and also do this thing with their knuckles called a coscorron. I don't even know how to say it in English. It's a coscorron, with their knuckles, they hit you on the top of your head. And my 4th grade teacher, who made it very clear he hated gringos and hated Americans, he would give me a coscorron all the time, and it would draw blood. But I was very brave. I was very, very brave because I tried to be the very best I could be. I tried not to get in trouble. I was very, I did a good job of trying to stay out of his way. And that too is an incredible lesson I feel like I learned. I try to stay out of his way, but, I still got the coscorrones, and I still got whipped in front of the class. And that was another thing. These teachers, they'd whip you in front of the class. And, like I said just a minute ago, no one wants to cry. So whoever got whipped, which we all felt so bad for. But at the same time, if they cried, we'd like make fun of them because, kids are kids. So when you're getting whipped in front of the entire class, not only does it hurt, but you have to like hold in the tears. Talk about repressed emotions. Oh my goodness. Oh, but the way that I got through that, I remember, it's just coming back to me. The way that I got through being whipped at school was I tell myself, I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky because all of my friends here, they also get whipped at home, which is, at least for my friends that I hung out with, I saw them get whipped by their parents all the time. And my mom, bless her, there's been lots of things that have been hard with my mom, but one thing she never did was whip me with a stick or a belt the way I saw my friends get whipped with sticks and belts. So when I'd be getting whipped in front of the class by this, I got whipped by several teachers, but mostly by this 4th grade teacher. I just tell myself, oh, but girl, you're so lucky. You're so lucky. You're so lucky. That was my mantra. Of course I didn't know it was a mantra then, but I just would tell myself that. And I tell my mom that, I felt very lucky that it only happened at school. That's what baby girl Jade made sense of that with. Oh my goodness. So, yeah, but my 3rd grade teacher was just divine. 4th grade, well, he didn't like me much. 5th and 6th grade, just queen jewels of my life in school in Yalapa. And there was a lot of kids that did not like me. Rightfully so. I remember, and it was in the 4th grade teacher class, when we learned about World War II. The teacher said, and if Hitler would have had his way, only Jade would be sitting here today. I remember it so vividly, and I remember the blood draining from my face, just like, oh shit. Here's a girl that doesn't want to stick out at all, and all of a sudden the teacher is pointing at me and saying that that the worst person on the planet had his way, only I would be living. Oh my goodness. Well, that day on the way home from school, I got beat up pretty good. Often, I would be told by the people who didn't like me in school that to go back where I came from, that nobody wanted me here, to go back to where you came from, which, is such a hurtful thing to say that so many people in this world say. Go back to where you came from. That would be Earth. We are all from Earth. We say here in the United States, that's what we say. Go back to where you came from. Oh my goodness, and the pain that causes. So it's wild to experience, as I know I have privilege. I'm a white human, a white woman, and to have experienced often to be told to go back. And so that's when I started another series within my body of deep guilt. I don't belong here. I'm not wanted here. And a very clear whole body feeling of I don't belong here and I'm not wanted here. Even though lots of people loved me, obviously, but I got the message. I understood. I don't belong there. I'm not wanted here at the end of the day. I'm not from here. And to be honest, that's one thing I do want to visit a lot in this podcast, because there's a big part of me, if not all of me, that really feels like an orphan. I don't have any close family. My mom, I barely get to see. She still lives in Puerto Vallarta in Mexico. I barely get to see her. She's in her mid-70s now. And I have no family in Tucson besides my son. I have no family in the whole United States that I really know and close to. It's just me. My dad used to be here, but my dad died in 2016. And he lived here in Tucson, but he's gone now. And I also feel like people I admire in the United States are also telling people like me to go home. But also really mean, really hurt white people are telling other people to go home. Everyone's telling each other to go home. Jeez Louise. And to be honest, I would love to know where home is. I would love to visit my ancestral lands. Because I
I just constantly feel like there's nowhere for me to belong. I feel like I didn't choose to be born in America. I would really love to be born on my ancestral lands, wherever that is. But then, when I take deep breaths and I talk to Mother Nature, which I do often, she reminds me, oh, baby girl, you're my daughter, and you are home. Earth is your home. And there's a lot of hurt behind all these things that we say to each other as humans. But you are home, honey girl. You were born in this desert. And while you have zero ancestors in this desert, and you're all alone, and you just wish that you had someone to come with you to your son's wrestling match. But I go all by myself. Even though I feel so lonely, I know I belong here. Mother Earth assures me all the time, but I'll tell you what, it would be nice, really, really amazing to feel what it feels like to stand on land where my ancestors lived and where I feel wanted by the ancestors of that land. But I absolutely do feel wanted by Mother Earth. And that's what I always have to come back to, because, oh goodness, this bit part of my big healing is I often feel so lonely, which is valid. But at the end of the day, I have Mother Earth, and I know I belong to her. I know I belong to her. So, yeah, that going home that we all say, I hear Americans say it to people, go home, to people I grew up with in Mexico or Central South America and beyond. Go home, go home. We are home. Earth is home. And, how incredibly sad that we can tell each other where home is and isn't for one another, instead of, hey, I'm glad you're here. And I'm sure that happens. It just doesn't really happen much to me. Not that I'm a victim to it. I'm not. It's just for some reason, and again, I'm not going to say everything happens for a reason, but part of my medicine on Earth is to alchemize this very thing. Growing up and being told to go home, being in America by people I admire, saying that it's my fault the way things are because I'm a white woman, and then having zero ancestral connection, none. I know a little bit about my ancestors. My primary ancestors were Dutch, and they came over trying to escape religious stuff and also a huge crisis of poverty and famine. But my ancestors came from the Netherlands somewhere. My mother's side completely. My dad's side is a little more complicated, but my mother's side completely came from the Netherlands and settled in a little town called Holland, Michigan. So very Dutch. Very, very poor people, but very religious people. Very poor, very religious. Very hardened. The grandmother I knew, and a little bit of my great-grandmother. My poor grandmother, she was so angry. I think she survived so much trauma that she probably never even spoke out loud. It made her very angry for good reason. So, yeah, where's home? Well, feet on my earth, my feet on the earth is home. Reminding myself that I'm actually not alone. I'm interconnected with all human siblings. And I belong to Mother Nature. I belong to Earth. I am her daughter. And one of the ways that I feel that I can, when I'm feeling really dysregulated, and if my practice is breath work and journaling and sacred rage, all the practices I do, if those aren't working, I have to get myself immediately into these specific hot springs that are in New Mexico. And I go and I sit in those hot springs, and as I'm walking into the hot springs, I'll feel very dysregulated, right? But as I'm walking in, I literally feel, I don't like saying literally. Okay, let me rephrase that. I feel as if Mother Nature is giving me a hug. Like, come here, honey, come here. Like a mother just holding her baby. And I get in those hot springs and everything melts away. And I no longer feel alone. I feel like I'm sitting in the source, her water. And these hot springs are in New Mexico. I know also that's not my ancestral land, but I know that this water is part of what I'm made of. I'm made of the same stuff as this water. And this earth. And this mystery and the pain and the beauty. And so I leave those hot springs always feeling refreshed and rejuvenated with a deep sense of belonging. And inevitably, that sense gets dwindled and dwindled and dwindled. And I must return again and again and again to those hot springs. And I'm so grateful for them. I honestly don't know how anyone else survives without going to hot springs. How do y'all do it? How do you, who doesn't go to hot springs, how do you live? I don't know. I need those hot springs. Oh my goodness. Wow. I feel so happy. I've been wanting to record this first podcast for years. And after being turned away from the border in Canada and coming back to Tucson and having 3 days of not scheduled work, I finally have a spacious time to do this podcast. So wow, that was heartbreaking, and I feel like I deeply failed the precious, beautiful people that invited me to come photograph. I'm grateful for this time to be able to start to share this story in a way that I really wanted to, and it feels so good. If you've gotten this far, thank you for listening. I'm really excited to continue. I hope that something in this story made you also feel held. I hope in my sharing that some of your shame might dissolve a little bit. I hope in my sharing you remember that you too, if you feel really alone, are also loved deeply, deeply by a greater spirit, or whatever you want to call that. I call it Mother Nature, but deeply held and loved. Your body is full of ancient intelligence and wisdom, and yes, trauma, but also so much resilience and beauty and the magic of constantly evolving. I hope you remember that you are a treasure to be protected. And I hope you truly, truly place your feet to the earth right now, hand to your heart. Let's take a deep breath together through our nose. Fill up your belly. Hold it. And then see how slow you can exhale. Regardless of how my life is going right now. Regardless of whatever I'm feeling. In fact, everything I'm feeling is welcomed here. Both ugly and beautiful and everything in between. This body is a precious body. This body is the home to my magnificent spirit. I'm so proud of this breath. I belong to this earth, and I am loved. Thank you for being here, and I hope you'll come back next Sunday. My intention is to drop one of these every Sunday because I love Sundays. So, we'll see you next Sunday. Kisses.